I'm Adam Meyer of Mill City Lutherie in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and in this video we have a 1950s Supro Westwood. Very cool looking guitar. It has a bolt-on type neck, and it's in for a refret. There's definitely way too much relief in this neck, and there is no adjustable truss rod. So we're going to have to go through the whole process of checking how much the neck flexes with the strings coming on and off, and adjust accordingly how I go about leveling the fingerboard and doing the fret dress. We'll look into a few other details on this. I'll get close-ups of that before we get underway. But yeah, it's a really cool looking, unique guitar. It has a very cool sound to it. So let's get this underway. Main complaint about this guitar was that it's difficult playing, or difficulty playing. We've got small frets on this, and as you can see up here, up at the top, they are ground way down, almost to nothing. We've got strings that have worn pretty deep into that saddle. Client or the owner of this guitar's got a complaint about the intonation not being very good on it, and that would be part of it. So I will fill these slots up because this is a pretty unique saddle. There isn't a replacement readily available for it. So go through, fill the slots, and reslot it so that the strings are not so deep into the saddle. So we're going to check the relief on this. Normally you'd be doing this in plain position, but this is a really stiff neck. It doesn't matter if the guitar's laying on its back, you get the same reading off the dial here. But just remember, the relief gauge reads in reverse, so we're up at 14 thousandths relief. Ideally this should be somewhere in that 5 thousandths, maybe just a touch less. It's not a flat fingerboard, it's maybe like a 14-inch radius, but having that much relief, that extra bow in the neck, can add to kind of a tight feeling when you're playing, so we want to get that straightened out. Now the issue here, checking with a notch straight edge, you can see that, yeah, we're definitely got a fingerboard that's bowing forward quite a bit, or the whole neck is. This is off enough where without the adjustable truss rod, we're just going to go in and do a fingerboard leveling and get things taken care of. The customer understands this. It's not going to be enough where we need to worry about the dot inlays. We're not going to take that much away. But what we're going to do now, we've got our 14 thousandths relief measurement. We're going to take the strings off and see how much the neck straightens out without that tension on it. Alright, so I've removed the strings and I've double checked the relief, and the neck is straightened out to 10 thousandths of an inch. So the neck flexes by 4. That's a pretty good result. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, get this fingerboard leveled, take the frets off, level the fingerboard, going to re-evaluate it with the frets off, figure out where I'm going to start sanding away wood. And nice knowing that we have just kind of that almost perfect amount of flex to the neck. I may, once we have the frets in, I'll string it up and everything, kind of get a feel for it. If I want to add just a touch of relief, I can do that on the string tension simulator. Otherwise, this may not need to be done under tension. I can probably just do it on my bench because we know that it's going to get that perfect relief. Alright, let's see how much work we have to do here. Just a reminder, this is not an adjustable neck. There's just one shot at doing this. I'm going to get this level. We do have gap through here, but this really, once you get the strings off, the frets off, it's not as bad as I was expecting. We'll be able to do a little here down towards the nut end, But mostly I'm going to focus up towards, slide this down here, the fingerboard tongue. There's no dot inlay there, so I can take more wood off there and not worry about sanding through the inlay or the extra work of pulling the inlay and drilling, taking it, putting it in deeper. I mean, that's not a real big deal, but you know, ideally, if you don't have to do it, you can just don't do it. Also keeping in mind side dots. Gonna split the difference here, do some work down at this end, some work down at that end instead of all at one end, because you can end up with your side dots getting really close to the top of the edge here, and that can end up looking weird. Or the customer gets the guitar and they come back and ask you, like, why is that so close? You know, you got to balance it out, do it right. So both ends, not a big. Well, gonna get this underway. Got to keep in mind the level. Always be rechecking with the backlight, and then also, it appeared that this was 14-inch radius, but that was based off the frets. Checking with the radius gauge now, it's actually a 12-inch, so I'm going to follow through with the 12-inch block. Just one of those things, you know, you want to make sure that you're not doing this at all, because then that will round down the edges. So sometimes I'll actually use a 14-inch block, just, you know, so if I do, you know, tip a little too far on the edges, I'm not going past that 12-inch. But we're working up here, we're working down here gradually, and bringing it together until everything is level all the way down the neck. And also make sure you protect the body. As you can see here, this isn't actually a dovetail guitar. For the next steps of this, I'm going to take the neck off. It doesn't actually need a neck reset, but it's going to be easier for me to do the fretting and what's going on with this with the neck off. It's like, why not? Especially with the frets up here on the tongue, there isn't any support underneath. Having the neck off, I'll be able to rest and tap the frets in much easier. So get a nice little look at what's going on behind here. First of all, the heel cap here is just a piece of plastic, and the strap is just holding that on. And you can see here that we are now bolted into place. It's been a long time since I've seen one of these. I forget, one of them actually is kind of like a micro tilt. It's sort of the same ideal that you would have in a fender neck pocket, where you can loosen a couple things, tighten one, and that will increase or decrease the neck angle, then tighten the screws around it. Now, as you can see here, got the primary bolt that holds it on. There are also two little wood screws that they're probably to help keep the neck from doing this. But the main bolt, this is what keeps on the body. Now this here, right here, this small little screw, that's for adjusting your neck angle. So there is a possibility where we get where we need to tip the neck back. Well, then you thread this back out. But if we run out of room, then you probably just have to file this back a little bit so you can increase the angle. But this was proud of the surface here, so we have room to bring the neck angle back already, so that's not an issue. One thing I'm going to do, all these threads, I'm going to add just a little touch of lube. This was all like really tough to get the bolts to break free and come loose. This one isn't wanting to turn already, so I definitely want to put some lube on that before we have this all done and getting it strung up for the final setup. That way I can adjust it at that time. But nice little way they've done this, and as you can see, the way this is, I believe that the fingerboard is glued down on top. Like, this must be like one piece of metal that goes down through the rest of the neck, because this is routed away here, and I can see the bottom of the fingerboard. And yeah, it just kind of makes sense that it would be something like that. I don't actually know for sure. I'd have to take it all apart, but that's not this job. It's not my guitar. I'm not going to be experimenting like that. So since I have this off, and just for curiosity's sake, since it obviously does not have an adjustable truss rod, I'm going to use one of my neodymium bromide magnets. These are for charging pickup magnets. I mean, you can use some for other stuff, but this is definitely going to tell where metal is. It's, you know, it's sticking on there really good. But unless this might be aluminum or something, because otherwise it is not holding anywhere. So if this does follow through down the rest of the neck, it is not non-magnetic. It's not a steel piece of metal going through. Considering how wide this is at the base, it might be that wide going all the way down. If that was steel, it would be really heavy. So maybe all of this is aluminum. Not sure. I'm not going to take it apart to find out, but just if anybody's curious about really old guitars, there's a little extra information for you. Okay, all I'm going to do is I'm going to get all these stripes in the rosewood. It looks brand new and fresh. I'm going to age this. Potassium permanganate. I forget its original use, but this will oxidize the surface of the wood. It's going to mix it with some warm water, definitely more than you need. Just going to do a little Q-tip over here in this area. Here's our little sample here. It definitely kind of dulls down the stripes in the wood, the contrast there. You know, a fingerboard this old is going to be more of a uniform dark brown. So this helps achieve that instead of just trying to rely on oil, because the oil you'll still be able to see those little lines in there. So this helps hide that this was refretted. It looks old. No dye, no stain. That would, you know, come off on your hands if you don't let it dry well enough. This is actually getting the surface of the wood to naturally darken. Alright, well, we got some good news. This fretted very nicely. The frets aren't perfectly level with each other, but they're really darn close to being level. And checking with the relief, it flexes just the perfect amount. So this primary component of this job was getting that fingerboard level, fret it, and it's right where it needs to be. Take the strings off, I'm at 0 for relief, and now I am like just on just past 5, a little bit like 5.5 thousandths. So I don't need to be doing anything special with the tension on the neck. I can just take the strings off and do a clean level with this. You want to level all the way up and down with a full length straight edge. Many times the fingerboard tongue will have fall away. This guitar doesn't have that. I could have sanded that into the fingerboard, but then I'm altering what it is, and it would have been noticeable that it thins out here. It is fine to be, you know, equal all the way up without fallout. So, got to be level by the long straight edge. We're not using a little fret rock or anything. We need to know that we are level all the way up, not just checking little spots here and there. So also making sure you stay consistent with that radius. A lot of people kind of skip over that detail. It isn't just level this way, but you want the radius nice and even across the strings. So time to get to the fret dressing now. Now the last thing about this guitar, I'm going to end up rebuilding this bridge. Normally you could do some things like trim down the top a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit. These string grooves have gotten really deep in here, and I believe that's part of an intonation issue that the owner's having. This is, you know, a very unique looking bridge here. There isn't going to be a replacement that looks like this. I have reason to believe this is original. I haven't seen a lot of these Supro guitars, but just that, you know, over time, string tension, it's kind of sagging a little bit. So it's old, obviously, but it's also pretty cool looking, unique with those angles and everything. So I'm going to do a little trick with super glue. I collected some sawdust from when I was leveling the fingerboard before. I'm going to use that and mix it with some glue and fill up these slots, and then re-slot for the strings so that they're up here at the top of the saddle. This time a restoration type thing. You want to slot these just like a tune-o-matic bridge, or adjusting individual saddles to match the radius of the fingerboard. But these are just so deep that, you know, I'm going to have some trouble with that. The other thing is, with the strings getting this deep into the saddle, you're basically cutting notches into the wood, you're weakening it. So we're going to hopefully get this strengthened a little bit as, you know, like a side effect to this. Add a little aged lacquer to the surface of this. I'm just going to use lacquer pen this time. Can either, if I was doing some touch up on a vintage instrument and had some mixed from an airbrush, I would just dip out of there. But this works just as well too. Not going crazy with it. Just a little something. Supro Westwood from the 1950s. I'm not sure the exact date at the time of filming this. I think you have to contact the company directly. The owner may have it, but I just forgot what he told me. But regardless, just basically a straightforward refret was all that was needed. I did a couple little extra touches like aging the fingerboard just so that it didn't like stand out as like this bright, freshly sanded rosewood. Pretty unique neck heel on this. Being able to take the neck off of an arch top guitar to do the fret work made it a breeze. I could definitely pound the upper tongue, the frets in there a lot easier and safer than had this been all on the guitar. That's always something that's a little bit worrisome when you're working on that. You don't have the support here, so you gotta wedge something underneath or take special care that you're not going to break anything. So yeah, plays great. Going to get it back to the owner, and hopefully it's everything I was looking for. Very unique guitar. I really like the aesthetic of the pickguard on this. Definitely a 1950s guitar. It's like this should be out of like a Bugs Bunny cartoon or something. So any questions about this or any other videos, you can always leave it in the comments section below, or you can contact me directly. My contact information should be in the About section of this channel, and we'll see you next time.